Good evening and welcome. Today is the 24th of February 2021. This is Primetime News on TV1. I'm Jamal Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team. Before we head into your stories in detail, here is a look at your headlines for tonight.
Prime Minister Imran Khan extends invitation to Sri Lanka to join the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Sri Lankan government officially rejects the report of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. United States to seek re-election to the UNHRC. Announces decision to support UNHRC's resolution on Sri Lanka for lack of accountability. High-sensitive ecosystem of Muthurajavela brought under the purview of the Urban Development Authority. Fertilizer subsidy to continue regardless of whether farmers transfer their harvests to the government. Decision made to purchase paddy for competitive prices. A statement from Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage. SLFP Central Working Committee to closely monitor the allegations brought forth against former President Maithripala Sirisena by the Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attack. Executive Committee to convene tomorrow for a final decision. Mahavansha named a World Heritage.
On to those stories in detail. The government has rejected the report published by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, on Sri Lanka this year. In a written response, the government said that calling for targeted sanctions and travel bans against individuals violates the rights of a sovereign nation.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, is expected to submit her annual report on Sri Lanka later tonight. In an unedited written response to the UN Human Rights Council, the Sri Lankan government said that calling for targeted sanctions and travel bans against individuals in the absence of credible findings by a competent court constitutes nothing less than a political agenda against a sovereign nation. The response added that such a political agenda destabilizes and violates the rights of a sovereign nation while contravening the principles of natural justice. Sri Lanka also condemned the recommendation in the report to keep Sri Lanka's peacekeeping operations under review, citing that it violates principles of the UN Charter on non-interference and sovereignty of states. In its response, the government has also categorically rejected the recommendations of the UN Human Rights Chief that the 20th Constitutional Amendment has taken away institutional checks and balances in the country. It added that the call for asset freezes, travel bans, and the reference to the International Criminal Court without a semblance of evidence in support points to a distinct and imminent danger which the international community as a whole needs to take note of. The response noted that Sri Lanka has remained open and committed to constructively engage with the UN system, including the Human Rights Council on national as well as global matters of importance. Meanwhile, the UN core group on Sri Lanka has already announced that it will table a resolution on the country at the ongoing UNHRC sessions. The resolution will be presented by the UN core group on Sri Lanka, comprising United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, Montenegro, Northern Macedonia and Malawi. The sponsors of the resolution have noted that the recurring trends of violence in Sri Lanka is a clear early warning sign of a deteriorating human rights situation in the country. They added that the current situation also portrays the erosion of the independence of the judiciary and key institutions responsible for the promotion and protection of human rights. Further, the sponsors of the resolution have called for a review of the previous resolutions passed against Sri Lanka at the 49th and the 51st UN Human Rights Council sessions. The resolution that will be tabled by the UN core group on Sri Lanka is likely to undergo changes during the session.
Finally, we will continue to lead action in this Council on Syria, as we do at each session, on South Sudan and on Sri Lanka, where we will present a new resolution to maintain the focus on reconciliation and on accountability. Madam President, we want to see an effective international human rights system that holds to account those who systematically violate human rights. And the Human Rights Council must be ready to play its role in full, or I fear we will see its reputation sorely damaged.
Meanwhile, the U.S. administration of President Joe Biden has announced its intentions to re-enter the Human Rights Council next year. In 2016, the U.S. under President Donald Trump had quit the UN Human Rights Council, citing it as, I quote, a cesspool of political bias, unquote. Speaking at the ongoing UNHRC sessions, U.S. Senate Secretary Antony Blinken had said that the foreign policy of the U.S. is centered around human rights and democracy.
It's an honor to join you as the United States re-engages with the Human Rights Council and other important international organizations. I'm here to reaffirm America's commitment to respect and defend the human rights of all people, everywhere. As the Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaims, all human rights are universal, indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated. The United States is placing democracy and human rights at the center of our foreign policy because they're essential for peace and stability. This commitment is firm and grounded in our own experience as a democracy, imperfect and often falling short of our own ideals, but striving always for a more inclusive, respectful, and free country. It's for that reason that I'm pleased to announce the United States will seek election to the Human Rights Council for the 2022 to 2024 term. We humbly ask for the support of all UN member states in our bid to return to a seat in this body.
The U.S. State Secretary also commented on Sri Lanka during his address.
We encourage the Council to support resolutions at this session addressing issues of concern around the world, including ongoing human rights violations in Syria and North Korea, the lack of accountability for past atrocities in Sri Lanka, and the need for further investigation into the situation in South Sudan.
Meanwhile, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which serves as the second largest organization after the UN, has expressed concerns about Sri Lanka's mandatory policy of cremating COVID-19 deceased. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation comprises 57 states, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Pakistan, the Maldives, Turkey, and Egypt.
The coronavirus has had a profound impact in all aspects of life, and especially in human rights. It has exacerbated social inequality and vulnerability. The OIC is concerned with the situation of Muslims in Sri Lanka, as they are denied the right to be buried the bodies of the virus victims following the Islamic rule, while adhering to the guidelines of the World Health Organization. The OIC urged the government of Sri Lanka to take swift action to guarantee and respect the right of burial of the Muslim community.
The United Nations Human Rights Council's 46th session got underway on Monday, February 22nd here in Geneva. The session, which will go on until March 23rd, comes after a little less than a month since the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights issued their report on Sri Lanka. An interactive dialogue session on the report of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, which was supposed to be taken up today, has been moved up until 9:30 p.m. Sri Lanka time and will continue tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. also in Sri Lanka time. In the report, the Office of the High Commissioner finds that the current Sri Lankan government has proactively obstructed investigations and trials, and also warns that with its withdrawal of its co-sponsorship of Resolution 30/1, the possibility of ending impunity for human rights violations through a domestic transitional justice process has closed. After the High Commissioner delivers her report, Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena will have the right to reply before the Council tomorrow. We will be joining you from future updates from the UN Palais des Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. Reporting for News First from Geneva, this is Ramzi Kais.
Visit in Pakistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan has invited Sri Lankan businesses to be involved in the CPEC project, also known as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Prime Minister extended this invitation at today's Pakistan-Sri Lanka Trade and Investment Conference 2021. The trade conference held in Colombo today was graced by the Prime Ministers of Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
We signed an FTA with Sri Lanka in June 2005. Since then, our exports have doubled, and our exports are now around $400 million. This seems good, but I honestly feel not good enough. it doesn't match the relationship that we have between our countries. And I feel that it should be much, much better. To further that trade through the FTA, we had a very constructive meeting with the Trade Minister today, and we discussed all elements of the PTA and the ideas of including services and investment as part of the FTA.
Our focus has shifted from geopolitics to geoeconomics. We feel that Pakistan is geographically so located that we can take advantage of our geographical location. And we want to make Pakistan into a hub for economic activity, transshipment. It's possible. It's doable. And our focus is peace, development, connectivity. CPAC is one example of that project that links regions and provides that regional economic connectivity that promotes trade, that promotes investment. The Foreign Office is there to assist, to facilitate, and the focus of the Foreign Office under the directions of the Prime Minister Imran Khan is economic diplomacy.
I would like to ask the business community in Sri Lanka to participate in our CPAC project. CPAC is an initiative of the BRI, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. And it opens the opportunity, as our Commerce Minister just mentioned earlier, that it opens the opportunity of Sri Lankan businesses right up to Central Asia. It gives you an opportunity of connecting from Gwadar, which is the port, right up to Uzbekistan and the Central Asian states. And this is the connectivity which Pakistan offers. Along with, in CPAC, we have these special economic zones, which give incentives to businesses to set up industry there.
We are finally beginning to think big into the next era, where we are going to take our countries. I have listened to both speeches of the Pakistani Prime Minister as well as that of our own Prime Minister. And we have seen a thread which is common, where they are talking about bringing the poverty down, making sure that the fruits of development reach every sphere of the country's people. And those are very important outcomes that we all need to be looking at. We all have understood that there is a resource gap within our countries, and that resource gap has to be filled with investment.
Pakistan's Gwadar port is currently being developed under China's Belt and Road Initiative, while the projects taking place under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is valued at $62 billion. An infrastructure development project to develop the transportation networks that connect China and Pakistan, and a trade and investment project is part of the CPEC.
Meanwhile, Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. The two leaders focused their attention on exchanging technological know-how to promote agriculture in both countries. According to the President's media division, the President has said his main objective is to develop the agricultural economy while ensuring higher revenue for the farmer and a fair price for the consumer. The President and the Pakistani Prime Minister paid attention to the steps that need to be taken to promote trade and expansion of investment opportunities between the two countries. Following the Pakistan-Sri Lanka Trade and Investment Conference, the Pakistani Prime Minister attended a meeting on the proposed high-performance sports centre at the Kirimandala Mawatha in Navala. The meeting, that was chaired by the Minister of Sports Namal Rajapaksa, saw the participation of political figures, former cricketers and several others. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan met with the leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa, in Colombo today. The duo discussed several matters of bilateral importance during the meeting. Discussions also focused on the cordial relations between Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan left the island at around 4:45 p.m. today, concluding his two-day official visit. Minister of Foreign Affairs Dinesh Gunawardena, Minister of Sports Namal Rajapaksa and Minister of Mass Media Kehelia Rambukwella were present today to bid farewell to the Pakistani Premier. Meanwhile, a joint statement issued on the visit said that the Prime Minister of Pakistan had announced a new $50 million defence credit line facility during the visit. Prime Minister Khan has also invited the President and the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka to visit Pakistan. Meanwhile, a special bilateral discussion was held between the Minister of Foreign Affairs Dinesh Gunawardena and his counterpart Shah Mahmood Qureshi at the ministry this morning. The discussion between the foreign ministers of the two countries lasted for nearly an hour.
Political leaders representing the northern province met with US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, in Kokkuville, Jaffna today. Leader of the Langai Tamil Arasukachi, Mave Senadiraja, Senior Deputy Leader CVK Sivanyanam and MP Sivanyanam Sridharan joined the discussion.
ஜெனீவாவிலே கொண்டு வரப்பட இருக்கின்ற தீர்மானம் தொடர்பில் அந்த தீர்மானத்துக்கு இருக்கின்ற சவால்கள்.
We discussed the resolution that will be presented at the UNHRC session in Geneva, challenges faced by the members of the core group and how they overcome them, our contribution as a Tamil community and about the discussions we should have with other foreign nations.
ஏனைய நாடுகளோடு நாங்கள் ஊடாட வேண்டிய விடயங்கள் என்ன போன்ற விடயங்கள் கலந்துரையாடப்பட்டது.
Meanwhile, Minister of Foreign Affairs Dinesh Gunawardena engaged in a discussion via telephone with State Councillor and Foreign Minister of China Wang Yi today. In a tweet, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said both ministers had discussed at length on matters relevant to development partnership and cooperation in the international fora.
Religious leaders expressed their views today on the report of the Presidential Commission which probed the April 21st attacks.
We have our reservations as to whether they are attempting to strain and filter the contents of the report before it is given to us. Yes, a certain doubt has arisen. This process should be conducted with ultimate transparency. We should also be made aware of the recommendations being made because there may be efforts to constrict the freedom of people.
The report ultimately concludes by stating that the Sinhala Buddhist group must be held responsible for this. This is a serious matter. How will the international community view this when such a group is named in such a manner? Our request from the President and the government is to compile a report to counter this one and unearth facts this report has not. Thereafter lay the foundation to eradicate Islamic extremism. Do not accept this report with open arms.
අපි සඳහන් කරන්නේ කැකිල්ල රජ්ජුරුවන්ගේ නඩු තීන්දුව වගේ තමයි සමහර පිටු වලින් අපි දැක්ක කාරණාවන් මේ රටේ ජාතික සංවිධාන.
This report has ultimately called for national organizations and Buddhist organizations to be banned. The innocent people of this country will be made the perpetrators in the end. This is a joke. Publicize this report immediately. Not doing so will result in a social unrest because certain factions will cling on to selected excerpts and distort them.
මේ එක එක කෑලි අල්ලගෙන එක එක පිටු අල්ලගෙන නොයෙකුත් කණ්ඩායම් මේ දඟලන දැඟලිල්ල හරහා
We would like to know from the Commission, does it know who was behind Zaharan? Does the report include details of the mastermind who managed Zaharan? Is Zaharan the ultimate orchestrator of the attack? This is not an order that was given by a court. This is the report of the Commission. The next step is the judicial process. A separate legal team is discussing with former President Maithripala Sirisena regarding the matter. They will issue a media release in the future as a party. This report has not identified the ultimate orchestrator of the attack, those who aided and abetted the attack, those who provided technological support and financial support. We regret the fact that the Commission has not studied deeply into this attack. Which chapter of this report includes information of Zaharan and his aides? How much were they paid? Had they provided a sufficient service for their remuneration? Which chapter includes that information? A person named Thomas from the RAW in India popped up from various parts of the island back then. He had even met with Vimal Veeravansa. The Indian High Commission claimed that he was mentally unstable. Is he still the same? Or has he recovered? No one knows which politicians he met. Why did he come to Sri Lanka? Is this not an issue for the Commission? Not a single word is mentioned on Sara. Did she die or did she flee to India? Is she alive in India? Does she work for RAW? Has she been paid? We saw in the recent past how various notices were issued to extradite international criminals. No notice was issued on Sara. This commission has forgotten Sara. Why did they omit her from the report?
සරාව අමතක කරලා මේ කොමිසම පරීක්ෂණය කළේ ඇයි?
Convening a meeting today, the Central Working Committee of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party discussed the allegations raised against former President Maithripala Sirisena in the report of the Presidential Commission probing the April 21st attacks. The meeting that was convened at the party headquarters was chaired by the chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, former President Maithripala Sirisena. We discussed several issues in this regard. Various views were expressed during the meeting. I cannot comment on this matter right now. However, as the SLFP, we will present the final verdict on this matter tomorrow.
On to another headline-making story. Minister of Environment Mahinda Amravira says the ecosystem surrounding the Muthurajawala wetlands will be brought under the purview of the Urban Development Authority.
We witnessed the situation at the Muthurajawala wetlands. The Cabinet of Ministers and the President has drawn their attention towards this matter. Following a discussion with the President yesterday, we have decided to bring the entire ecosystem surrounding the Muthurajawala wetlands under the purview of the Urban Development Authority. This area will be developed as a destination for environmentally friendly tourists. The development project will be carried out as a joint initiative with the Urban Development Authority, the Central Environmental Authority, the Ministry of Environment, the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau and the Department of Wildlife. We hope to carry out a joint project that will protect this natural resource.
It
is because of wetlands, Colombo and Gampaha have natural control over floods. That process will stop if wetlands are destroyed. 25 varieties of mangrove plants can be seen in the Muthurajawala Reserve. Moreover, 35 out of 75 endemic aquatic species, 14 out of 54 amphibians, 31 out of 155 reptiles, 22 out of 90 mammals and 83 out of 226 birds can be seen in Muthurajawala. Now, the Urban Development Authority is to take over part of the Muthurajawala wetland. This area will be named a development zone. That project will come up once it is named a development zone. The development project will include eco-friendly buildings, flower gardens, golf courses. The water system flowing through Muthurajawala will be blocked once this acre is used for the construction process. We are completely against giving this to the Urban Development Authority. What we are saying is to hand over this land to the Wildlife Authority and preserve it as a reserve. State Minister of Primary Healthcare, Epidemics and COVID Disease Control, Dr. Sudarshani Fernandopoulos said that 500,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses purchased from India are to arrive in the island tomorrow.
According to the information we have, by Thursday, the first batch of 500,000 vaccines will come to the country. Moreover, under the COVAX facility, 264,000 vaccines will arrive by the beginning of next week. India has informed us that it is possible to send the first batch of 500,000 vaccines by tomorrow.
President's Counsel Salia Piris was elected as the 26th President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka earlier tonight. President's Counsel Salia Piris secured 5,162 votes, while President's Counsel Kuwera de Zoiza only managed to secure 2,807 votes at the election.
Mr. Kuwera de Zoiza polled a total of 2,807 votes. And Mr. Salia Piris, President's Council, polled 5,100.
President's Council Salia Piris and President's Council Kuwera de Zoiza were contesting for the post of President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. A past student of St. Joseph's College, Colombo 10, President's Counsel Salia Piris was appointed as a member of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka between October 2015 to March 2018. He was Deputy President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka from 2015 to 2017, and he has been an advocate for the strengthening of human rights, a strong and independent bar in Sri Lanka, and consistently stood for the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. President's Counsel Salia Piris is an Eisenhower Fellow and is an alumni of the Dealing with the Past program, Switzerland and IVLP USA.
This is not my victory alone, but the victory of the bar, a victory for a strong and an independent bar. And once again, the bar has shown that it votes wisely and that the bar can take principled decisions based on policies. Be involved in the work of the bar. I will be someone who will be open. I will be a president who will be accessible to the members of the bar. And in the next few weeks, I will plan what we have to do. And I would like to see our policies, our program of action be actually implemented.
Conditions that were set by regulation on providing fertilizer relief for the farmers have been removed with effect from midnight yesterday, but by an order of the President. Minister of Agriculture Mahindananda Alutkamage said approval has been granted to allow buyers to purchase paddy from any farmer at a competitive rate.
රජය V-metric ton ලක්ෂ 3ක සංචිතයක් තබා ගැනීමේ ජාතික වැඩපිළිවෙල සම්බන්ධයෙන්
The President has taken a special decision in line with the national program to acquire paddy stocks of 3 metric tons by the government. Until now, the government purchased 1,000 kilograms of paddy from the farmers who cultivated on more than 1 hectare of land. The farmers conveyed their grievances regarding the issue, and taking into account the concerns, the government has decided to refrain from purchasing paddy from the farmers that are being facilitated from the fertilizer relief. The government has now allowed the Paddy Marketing Board to purchase paddy from any farmer.
ගොවියට දෙන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම විල VLA මණ්ඩලය ලබා දෙන්න.
UNESCO has decided to declare the Mahavansya as a World Heritage. Accordingly, the Mahavansya, currently kept at the library of the University of Peradeniya, will be declared as a World Heritage.
Representatives of the UNESCO have inspected other Mahavansya palm leaf books located at various places in the country, but due to their shortcomings, they were deemed not eligible to be granted the World Heritage status. Professor Upul Dissanayake, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, told Newsfirst that the decision was reached by UNESCO considering that all sections of the Mahavansya were correctly conserved at the university library. The Mahavansya is believed to have been written in the 13th century and covers the period from the arrival of King Vijaya to the British takeover of Sri Lanka in 1815.
The University of Peradeniya currently maintains the Mahavansya, which includes all sections accurately. UNESCO has decided to declare the Mahavansya, currently kept at the university's library, as a World Heritage in a manner that would allow anyone to access it.
And with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jayamal Ratnayaka, along with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Take care, stay safe, and good night.